how long does it take to see results from SEO and GEO? Well, it really depends on a few different factors. The first one being, what is your competition like in comparison to where your site is at right now? And what I mean by that is, let's say, for example, you're in the GLP-1 niche, right? As everyone knows, that is incredibly competitive. There are so many people trying to enter the space, and there's so many big players that are already there. The big players that are already there, they would have already done a lot of SEO, and they would have been around for a good few years at this point. So if you think about, if you're a brand new brand, you have a big gap to fill. And what I mean by big gap to fill is the authority and power of your site, the age that Google sees, the content and amount of content and quality of content, and the overall build out of your site in general, right? So as an example, these brands that have been around for 3 years, they might have done a lot of digital PR, meaning they are featured in a lot of big publications and they have links back from those publications back to their website. That is essentially like rocket fuel from an SEO point of view. Google sees that as like a huge thumbs up. The more power and authority you get from other big websites, the quicker you're going to rank, because Google then starts to see your site and your brand as an authority. So if there is a giant gap between the two, that is the work that we have to do at DTC SEO agency, right? That is the gap that we need to fill and figure out. And if you are a brand that's been around for a good number of years already, usually you've picked up a bunch of backlinks, potentially without even knowing, organically, or you've been featured in different publications, because of different things that you've done or product launches or whatever it might be. So that is fantastic for us because it saves a lot of time. So as an example, with a site that is already built up with some level of power, usually you're kind of around bottom of page 1, middle of page 2, maybe page 3 for some of the larger keywords that you'd want to rank for. That for us as an SEO partner is fantastic. Huge thumbs up, because that means that we can get results a lot quicker, right? So if you're an existing brand, the gap between you versus your competition is potentially smaller, right? Which takes less time to build up that power and authority and close that gap and overtake the competition. If you're starting out brand new and you're a totally new website, I'm talking like 0 to 1 years old, that authority gap between the two is huge. So really, that is what dictates the amount of time that comes into play. The second part is, how aggressive do you want to scale? And what I mean by that is, let's say, for example, you had $5,000 a month budget. You were a website that was 2 years old and you were in the GLP-1 niche, as an example. $5,000 that goes into content and links is a very small budget for that high competition niche, right? But if you had $15,000 as an example, we can build a lot more high quality links. We can build a lot more high quality content. What I mean by content is written content that goes on the website. We can optimize a lot more pages, and we can do a lot more digital PR. So really, those are the two things in terms of where your site is right now versus the competition, and how aggressive do you want to go in terms of scaling with things. And the great thing about SEO is, let's say you are at $15,000 a month, you're capped out at that spend, right? Unless there's like a crazy opportunity to jump on all these different publications, your spend is basically flat, which is fantastic because your traffic carries on rising, your costs stay down here, and that's when the profit really starts to come in and compound over time. The other side of things as well, talking about compounding, is you have to compound the power. the authority and the content on a site. And that is why a brand new website can't all of a sudden rank for GLP-1 or buy GLP-1 online, right? Because Google doesn't trust it yet. You have to prove to Google that you are worthy, your site is worthy to be up there with the sites that are, have already been there for a good period of time. And that is why we have to create such good content and build such good backlinks from other very powerful websites in your industry. Because if we have subpar backlinks and subpar content, why on earth would Google ever place you above the top competitor, right? Just worth thinking about from that point of view. So hopefully that is helpful. To answer the question, TLDR, if you are an existing brand and the competition is not that strong, we can get results within a couple of weeks, which is freaking awesome. We doubled the revenue of one of our clients. They went from just shy of £400,000 to £800,000 in organic search revenue that we accurately track via our triple whale dashboard that we built out with their team. Took like 4.5 months. We doubled their organic search revenue in a 90-day period because they already had a good underlying amount of power on the website. They already had the pages built out. We just came in, built a lot of links directly to very specific pages, re-optimized those pages. We did a bunch of technical SEO work that was basically holding the site back, and it unleashed the site, and a lot of pages, different pages started to rank. So as an example, that is how long it can take. And we're talking about doubling organic search revenue, like £400,000 of additional revenue coming in, which is pretty freaking decent. If you are a brand new website, I always tell people, if it's a competitive space, do not expect to see any ROI for at least 12 to 18 months. That's just the way it is with SEO from that point of view. Touching on GEO, a little bit different. You still want to be featured on those large publications, especially listicles as well as, because the more you can get in to, the more citations that you can get, basically. So if you've ever done a search on ChatGPT, what is the best XYZ, you'll see, hey, it's searching online. It's looking at the different resources. It's looking at how many times each of those companies are featured and mentioned, but it's looking at authoritative websites. It's not just looking at any random website that you're featured on. It's looking at the top publications, essentially. So you need to be featured in those publications, and you need to get a link back to your site, right? And what does all that come from? The foundation of SEO. So everything that we work on from a foundational standpoint now applies and bleeds over into SEO, LLM, GEO, AEO, whatever the hell you want to call it at this point. So hopefully that is helpful. Just one last point on GEO, because we get a lot of people asking about it. They're like, we don't want SEO, we only want GEO. Right, so speaking to that directly, one of our clients, they do around just over 100 mil revenue per year. $32 million of revenue comes directly from organic search. $19,000 comes from GEO. And they have one of the highest number of citations that we've seen inside of Ahrefs, which is the proper SEO tool that we use. They get a lot of traffic coming in. A lot of the traffic is going to blog content and blog pages, however. So that is the overall thing. Okay, great. We want an extra 19K down here. Awesome. Yes, over time, people are going to start to use LLMs a lot more. 100%, totally agree. We want to be there, but we also want to be generating the massive revenue from SEO, and both play into each other. So just a side note on that. Cool. Hopefully that's been helpful in terms of how long it might take to rank and how long it might take to see an ROI. And we'll go from there. Any questions, let us know. Head over to DTC SEO agency.com. More than happy to help. Hop on a call with myself and we'll run through your site in more detail and go from there.